if then else. It is the most common conditional in programming. In fact, I use various forms of if then else every day, across expressions in After Effects and JavaScript, WordPress and PHP, even in Microsoft Excel. Needless to say, if you don't know how this conditional works, then you should keep watching. For everyone else, watch anyway. You may learn something new as well. Now, a quick TLDR on why conditionals exist. The most basic code is usually executed starting with the first line, and then the next, and then the next, and so on. However, more often than not, you need a way to toggle between executing different lines of code, depending on some condition. This is where conditionals come in. For this video, we're looking at if then else. Almost every coding language has some variation of if then else, but regardless of the syntax, the principle of it goes like this. If some condition resolves to be true, then do these lines of code. Else, do these other lines of code. In both PHP and JavaScript, which includes use in Adobe After Effects expressions, we would write it in the following way. We start with if, followed by parentheses, that then contain the condition. Next, we actually omit the word then, because it is assumed, and instead we use curly brackets to wrap up our code that is to be executed when the condition resolves to be true. After the curly brackets, we can then write else, and again we use the curly brackets to wrap our code for when the condition resolves to be false. Since the condition is asking a question by prefacing it with if, it must either resolve to be true or false. This is called a Boolean. You can see more about them here. The condition could be simple, like if we asked if our quantity equals 0, then we need to order more. Else, we are still open for business. Or, if our fuel is less than 10%, then alert that it's time to refuel, else do nothing. In that case, we can omit the else statement entirely. We can also ask multiple questions as part of a conditional, using two operators. Two ampersand symbols is how we ask and. For example, if our fuel is less than 10%, and we do not have a spare fuel tank, then alert that it's time to refuel. Now the other operator is using two of the pipe symbols, and this is how we say or. For example, if our fuel tank is less than 10% or the cost of fuel is low, then alert that it's time to refuel. Using parentheses in our conditional also lets us group these questions together. We can combine our last two examples in this way. You can see that our questions combined with and are in parentheses, and this will only resolve to be true if both statements are true, and that will trigger our then statement. Or, if the cost of fuel resolves to be true, it will also trigger our then statement. In this way, we can have a number of questions all resolving to trigger code under certain parameters. We can also use else if instead of else in order to ask another condition if the first one evaluates as false. For example,
would the doctor care for a brandy before retiring?
No. Thank you.
Some warm milk, perhaps?
No, thank you very much. No thanks.
Ovaltine.
Nothing. Thank you. I'm a little tired.
If we only have one line of code between the curly brackets of a conditional, we can remove the curly brackets to declutter our code. If our conditional only includes one then statement and one else statement, we can reduce our whole conditional into one line in the following way. The if becomes a question mark, with our conditional being declared first. After the question mark is the code to execute when the conditional is true. The else statement becomes a colon symbol, which is then preceded by the code for when the conditional resolves to be false. In this circumstance, both our then and else statements are setting the value of the same variable. So in this circumstance, we can move the variable and equals sign to the start of a conditional, reducing the length of code even further. Here we can see the smallest version of the if then else conditional. This version does not let you omit the colon though, so you always need to have a statement for when it resolves to be true and one for when it resolves to be false. In the next conditionals video, we will look at the switch conditional and how it lets us trigger certain code based off the value of a variable. Until next time, my name is Bench, thanks for watching.